Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Star Wars Republic Commando HD re-release. I played it on the PS5. It's also available on the PS4, the Xbox Series, the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, and PC. Now, the first thing I'm going to say about this game is I've seen it titled a remaster. I don't consider it a remaster. I will explain that a bit more afterwards, but to me, it's definitely much more of an HD re-release. So let's get into the story, which I gotta say, the story is weak, honestly. So you play as Delta 38, a clone soldier during, the Clone Wars in Star Wars. You are the leader of the Delta Squad, which is a group of commandos. You are basically Spec Ops. You're 4 guys who go in and kick ass hardcore. Now, as for the story, really, there's only a couple of levels that tie in together, and even vaguely, and honestly, the timing is weird. There's a year between each level, so it's kind of weird how the second and third level tie in together, but each one is kind of unique. They're their own battles in the Clone Wars, basically. But it's not a strong story. You don't feel this big overarching narrative going on. You really are just boots on the ground in this situation. Admittedly, you are Spec Ops, kind of behind the lines, but, there's not that big overarching story. You don't feel like there's a bigger thing going on. It's something you should kind of know in your mind already about the Clone Wars, I guess. Which is kind of neat in its own way, that you feel this small element to it, but it is always generally nice in video games when you feel like you're part of something bigger and you're doing something small to lead to something bigger. It just never felt that way. Until you hit the ending, and then you're like, oh, okay, but the ending is definitely very cliffhanger-ish, and it just kind of leaves you hanging and wanting a bit more, which we never got. But let's get into the audio, and I'm gonna say, first off, I really like the sound effects in this game and the music, and you know what, I'm just gonna say in general, the audio I think is well done. The voice acting is pretty good. It's better than I would expect from an old Xbox era game. But as for the sound effects, they definitely fit 100% in the Star Wars universe. I think they did a really good job with the blaster sound effects, explosions, making you sound like a clone trooper, which we did hear a bit of in the movies, so it works well. As for the music, it really fits, and some of it feels a little more unique, but it fits with the Star Wars music. It definitely fits with the theme of the game. I think they did a good job there. Now let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is a first-person, squad-based, not quite, but occasionally tactical shooter. The reason I say that is because you have a squad and you can sort of command them to do certain things, but it's not as in-depth as I would say some real tactical shooters like Rainbow Six. That being said, commanding your guys is actually very beneficial, and I found that pretty easy and pretty useful. So I think they did a good job with that. I'm actually impressed with how well it worked sometimes. I say sometimes because your squad's AI is horrible. It really is, unfortunately. The number of times they stepped in front of me when I'm already shooting an enemy and got shot themselves. Man, there was one time where I shot a guy in the back of the head 3 or 4 times. And I mean a friendly in the back of the head 3 or 4 times because he just kept stepping in the way at the worst possible moment. It was really annoying. But they also do really dumb shit even when you give them orders. I was trying to get a guy to go destroy something, and he could have gone to the right, where we were already, and it was practically clear of enemies, but instead he decided to go back the way we came, then to the left, which there was a horde of enemies and would just get murdered, and it was horrible. Figuring that out, getting him to do what I needed to destroy the thing I needed was awful, honestly. It took a lot of tries, and that's one thing that really starts to drag the game down. The horrible AI of your squad makes things take a lot longer, makes things take a lot more tries than it should. And generally, it's not like I lost huge amounts of time due to it, but there were some times where it was just really, really frustrating. And it's not just your squad, it's pretty much any friendly AI. There were a couple of times in missions where you're saddled with a friendly AI who you have no control over, and they just do stupid shit that gets them killed. Which is obviously frustrating, because then you fail the mission and you have to load the last checkpoint. So friendly AI in this game is very, very, very much, you know, original Xbox level AI. It's garbage. It's bad. It was also kind of silly because each of the squad members has their specialty. You've got, you know, your sniper guy, you've got your hacker guy, you've got your bomber guy, but all of them can do the exact same jobs as each other. There really wasn't any benefit, and so you'd put a guy in place and, you know, you'd put a guy in the sniper position and guess what? It'd be your bomber guy, or you'd send a guy to go blow something up and it'd be your hacker guy. It just didn't make sense, and it didn't really matter. I mean, it mattered more for their personalities than for gameplay, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why even have that gameplay element? You could still have them be their own unique characters without that gameplay element that doesn't really exist in the game. Also, I want to bitch about, there are some areas with infinitely spawning enemies, and that just gets old and stupid. There are these pods that could maybe hold 6 to 9 of the enemy droids, and yet they can just continually reproduce them. There were other areas too where there were just infinite enemies until you completed the task at hand, and that just got annoying and old and obnoxious. It's definitely an older mechanic that you don't really see as often nowadays, and when you do see it, you're generally thinking, well, this is bullshit. But let's get into the controls, which I've got to say, unless this is something that they actually did remaster, these are really good controls and they actually hold up very well, which I doubt is a remaster feature because, you know, the Xbox generation is when we started to see those better first-person controls. So I gotta say, impressed with that. I really don't have any complaints with the controls. At any point in time, did I have any problems? No. So I'm gonna say, yeah, the controls are definitely really good. Now let's get into the graphics and visuals, and I've gotta say, visually, like the design of the worlds, the design of the members of the squad, the design of the ships, all of that. Very Star Wars, Clone Wars era. It all fits really well, and I'm not going to argue with any of that. The enemy designs are really good. I think they work very well. I think, you know, like I said, your character designs work well. The worlds, I feel like they did the best they could to bring them to life with what they had. There are also some neat little details, like when it's raining or if you're up close and personal and you get enemy guts on your visor, there's like a little thing that wipes it away. I love little details like that. I think that's very cool. But as I said, they did as well as they could, and that's where I get into this being an HD re-release rather than an actual remaster, because visually it doesn't look any better than it did on the Xbox. Yeah, you've got widescreen, yeah, it's cleaner, but I mean, that's what you expect from an HD re-release. The detail isn't there. It's not like they went in and graphically overhauled this game or anything like that to make it really feel like it was remastered. I'm not saying full-blown remake, I'm saying this is just an HD re-release. Visually, it looks like dog shit, quite frankly. Like, from a graphic standpoint, it doesn't look good, it doesn't hold up well. Not that it looks so terrible that you can't tell friend from foe or anything like that, but the amount of detail in the world, visually, the graphics, the things that make things look realistic, they're just not there, and it's not like it's stylized to be cartoony looking or anything like that. It just doesn't look good because, you know, this is an Xbox era game. I keep using Xbox as my standard because I originally played this game on the original Xbox. But that being said, so visually, I gotta give this... So let's get into the wrap-up. And the one thing that annoyed me going into this game and, you know, first playing it was I heard remaster, remaster, remaster. And then I started playing it and I was like, this is not a remaster, it's an HD re-release. So I just want to hammer that home. And I gotta say, the story really wasn't engaging. It honestly didn't do anything to keep me going. The only thing that really kept me going through this game was that I had decided I was going to review it. And I will say the gameplay works well enough, but there's also enough of it being really frustrating. You know, it just gets annoying to play it. The best things I can say about this game are the audio and the controls, which are things that support the gameplay and story, and, you know, if the story and gameplay aren't there, then... lipstick on a pig, you know? Or polishing a turd, I guess you could also say. You can get where this is going. While I didn't necessarily hate my time with this game, I also can't recommend this game. I mean, it is very cheap, but there's just not enough of the things that I think are most important in a game to say go buy it. So, skip it. Okay, so in the comments down below, I probably asked this before, but what is your favorite Star Wars game? As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.